Nightmare neighbor, 3 a.m. intrusion. At the time I'm writing this happened 2 weeks ago. I've always hated just about all of my neighbors. I'm fresh out of college and I'm living on my own, but that comes at a price. I'm living in a really shitty area, the only place I can afford a house, so I'm not bound to have the ideal neighbors. The neighbors on one side always have their music blasting, while the neighbors on the other side are the creepiest people I've ever met in my life. It's 2 people living next door. One woman in her 60s who's not friendly at all and honestly doesn't seem all there, and a slightly younger woman who has some kind of severe mental disability. I have no idea what the relationship is between the 2. I would commonly be sitting on my front porch when I'd look over next door and see the older woman holding the younger woman back. As she'd be having some kind of freak-out episode, she'd have her arms crossed and she'd quickly rock back and forth while screaming and making noises. Sometimes she'd even look over and point at me and mumble stuff to the other woman. It's quite disturbing, actually. Sometimes I even go inside when I get too uncomfortable anyway. It was a night like any other. I had to go to bed early for work in the morning. However, the next-door neighbors were making an unusual amount of noise. I could hear the deranged woman screaming and throwing a fit as the older woman yelled in distress. This went on for about an hour, and I couldn't take it anymore. I marched over to the house next door and banged on the door. The older woman answered and greeted me with a, "What the hell do you want?" I asked as politely as I could to keep the noise down. In response, she raised her eyebrows and tilted her head down, clearly annoyed by my request. Just then, the younger woman entered the living room screaming, "How dare you!" Repeatedly, the older woman held her back from approaching me and then slammed the door in my face. I had no idea what just happened, but I felt like I didn't accomplish what I came there for. I walked back to my bed in defeat. However, I realized they had finally gone silent next door. I was able to get some sleep at last. Well, I woke up feeling like the night went way too fast. I looked at my clock and saw that it was only 3 o'clock in the morning. My head fell back into the pillow in relief, but pretty soon I thought I could hear something come from downstairs. I got out of my bed and went over to my door just to make sure I wasn't hearing things, when I didn't hear any other sounds, and I went back to bed. I woke up once again to a dark room only 20 minutes in test since I'd fallen back asleep. I didn't know what could have woken me up though, and then I heard I panicked and tried to find my phone on my bedside desk as a source of light. But when I found it, I didn't dare turn the light on. I looked around the dark room in silence, trying to find some kind of dark figure in the room. I looked at every corner of the room, and even though it was so dark, I could tell there wasn't anybody standing there. This time I heard where it was coming from. I turned to the edge of my bed and saw a black, shadowy, circle-like object right at the edge of the wooden wall of my bed when the light of my phone revealed that black objects would be the face of the deranged woman from next door. She screamed like the lunatic she loved. She screamed as if she were a vampire in the light. I screamed as well. I screamed as I clumsily ran for the door and tripped halfway. Looking back to see the woman following me, I slammed the bedroom door behind me and ran all the way downstairs where I locked the door leading to the upstairs. I called the cops as the woman pounded on the door screaming incomprehensible things when the cops showed up. I told them the woman lives next door and that she was mentally insane. The older woman from next door came over after hearing all the commotion and spoke with the cops, pleading with them to let her go. But they insisted they had to take her in for at least the night. One of the officers asked me if I wanted to press charges, and as he asked this, the older woman gave me the most evil, hateful stare imaginable. I chose not to press charges, but her stare didn't change. The officers drove the old woman away, while the older woman continued to stare at me as she walked back to her house. 5 minutes later, I saw her get in her car and drive away. These two still live next to me. I'm seriously